Welcome to this week's edition of the Comic Hero Show. I'm your host, Victor Nunley, and I am the Comic Hero. Alright, this is it, folks. This is the episode where I finally get to 9,000 comics. And I only need 3 to do it. And I can tell you right now, I bought more than 3 comics over the weekend. But before I go on with the show, I just want to, for those of y'all who don't already know, Stan Lee passed away. He was everything to comics, not just Marvel comics, but comics in general. He, along with several other creators back in the 60s, founded Marvel from the ground up. And he has been an influence on so many creators throughout the years, even when he was, because he was only the writer. He started out being a writer, then he ended up being the editor-in-chief, then publisher. I mean, he's done it all at Marvel, and he lived a good full life. He was 95, but at the same time, when someone dies, and it doesn't matter how long they've lived, you can't help but be sad. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm sad as well. I'm sad just like the rest of y'all are. That's why throughout the majority of this episode, I'm going to wear this shirt in memory of Stan. And it's just a sad day. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a Marvel fan, DC fan, or like me, you're both, or you're just a moviegoer, or even if you don't really watch the comics, movies, or any of the TV shows that come on Netflix or ABC. I mean, you miss him. And I know he's in heaven. I know he is. Because what a lot of folks don't know about him, he's also a man of faith, and he's finally reunited with his wife Joan, who passed away last year. Both, I say this quite often, but to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, and there's no doubt in my mind that Stan Lee is with the Lord. I can't really imagine him being anywhere else. But Stan, we love you, we miss you, and we will see you again real soon, or one day. Alright, it's time to give away a free t-shirt. Alright, last week's episode I asked, in the pages of X-Men, what is Bishop's real name? Well, the correct answer is Lucas Bishop. 3 people have answered correctly, and because they've answered correctly, their name's been entered in a drawing for a free tee, and that drawing takes place right now. So, the winner of the free tee for this week's episode of the show is Christopher Newton from Camden, Arkansas. So congratulations, Christopher. You win yourself a free Comic Hero tee. Alright, here's the question for next week's episode, and this is a Stan Lee question. What is Stan Lee's famous catchphrase? Now here's a hint. It's only one word. Everyone who answers correctly been entered in a drawing for a free tee in next week's episode of the show. So, I gotta ask. Any questions?
Questions I walk around in. Questions I didn't thrive in. Questions I will survive in. Questions.
Alright, this week I have 2 questions that are both from April Hooks from Camden, Arkansas. The first one she asked is, what is the first comic book you've ever read? Well, April, the one that I've actually really ever read was X-Men #1 from 1991. It was written by Chris Claremont with art by Jim Lee. And the lineup that was on there consisted of Cyclops, Jean Grey, Wolverine, Psylocke, Gambit, Rogue, Iceman, Archangel, and Beast. And it was, and of course Professor X was in it, and then they went up against Magneto. kind of a nod to the original series that came out in 1963. That, you know, that was one of those books that I could just read all the you know, even though I have it in my possession. Well, actually, I don't have the original copy in my possession. Before I started reading and collecting comics, this came out when I was about 9 or 10 years old. And back then, I would read comics, but I would never take care of them. A lot of times, I would just, you know, either let them lay waste or just throw them away. But years later, I ended up buying another copy of that issue and read it again, and it's in my library. And one thing about that issue, that's one of those few books that I'm not opposed to just pulling out and reading again. Come to think of it, I may do so after this episode. Alright, but X-Men #1 from 1991. Alright, the second question she asked is, what made you want to start reading and collecting comics? April, when I was, you know, I'm gonna go back years before I decided to, before I started wanted to read comics. Well, here's where the whole reading comics came from. It actually came from my Aunt Brenda Smith. She used to babysit me when I was a toddler, and I remember she had all these comics. There were, I think the publications were both Archie and Harvey comics, and I was so I don't know, like, I mean, the artwork. I mean, I was so mesmerized by the artwork. You know, the comics are just as good as the artwork. I don't care what publication it is. The writing is just as good as the artwork. And back then, I didn't really know how to read. I mean, but the artwork spoke more words than what was in the speech bubbles. And as I got older, I started reading them, but I didn't really take care of them. And then around that time that I got into reading comics, again, I never really took care of them, and I was always collecting trading cards. But I got tired of that, because the only thing you can really do with trading cards is collect them, take care of them, look at them, and trade them. I mean, to me, that's a little boring. It got boring right around the time I turned 16, which was a month and a half before I started reading comics, and then I just decided, you know what, I'm done with this. I want to read comics. I started thinking about, you know, my Aunt Brenda and all those comics, and then and then one of the one things that really turned me on to do it was finding out about Superman's electric powers. Now, I was young and stupid back then. I thought that was cool, but then as I got older, I came to the realization that that was a very bad idea. But then I just kept reading. I would only read Superman for probably about the first year that I started, and then I eventually started reading Fantastic Four, then Green Lantern, then X-Men, and it just went uphill from there. And you know, it's been nearly 21 years, and I have no regrets for this hobby. I say that a lot, and I stand by it. All right, that's it for any questions. If you have any questions you want to ask me, go ahead and do so. All right, now D'Angelo Balloon from Youngstown, Ohio has requested a Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown fight, and this one features the Sentinel of Liberty against a video game character from a fighting game. Representing Marvel, we have Captain America. And representing Darkstalkers, we have Baby Bonnie Hood. These two are going to duke it out in a segment I like to call
The Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown.
Welcome to the Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown. Today, it's Captain America versus Baby Bonnie Hood. Captain America possesses peak human strength, speed, durability, agility, reflexes, senses, and mental processing, accelerated healing factor,
is a master martial artist and hand-to-hand combatant, expert tactician, strategist, and field commander who wields a vibranium steel alloy shield. Baby Bonnie Hood is skilled with different types of weaponry. Her weapons of choice are a seemingly endless number of various armaments and ammunition that she keeps hidden in her basket. Who will win? Baby Bonnie Hood will waste no time using her endless number of armaments and ammunition on the Star-Spangled Avenger. The latter will block a majority of Baby Bonnie Hood's weapons. This will go on for minutes on end until Baby Bonnie Hood fires a bazooka at Cap. Cap uses his incredible leaping skills and avoids being hit. He then grabs Baby Bonnie Hood's basket and throws it off the cliff where the fight took place. Baby Bonnie Hood, out of desperation, jumps off the cliff in a failed attempt to retrieve her basket. Cap is completely mortified of this until he sees a demonic creature rapidly leave Baby Bonnie Hood's dead body. Cap goes from being mortified to being confused. Captain America wins. And that concludes this fight on the Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown.
Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed that fight. If you have fight requests for future episodes, contact info is down there. Alright, folks, it's time for Comically Speaking, so without further ado, let's talk comics! Alright, there's going to be two things I'm going to talk about in this segment of Comically Speaking, and the first one, obviously, is about Stan Lee. Now, at the beginning of the show, I was telling you about about some of his accomplishments, building Marvel from the ground up with other creators. But I'm just going to let y'all know what he means to me. Stan, he meant a lot to me in terms of being a comic book reader, but also a creator myself. There were some superheroes that I created, but over time I wasn't really satisfied with anything, and I just kept changing stuff, and it eventually came to the point where I just didn't want to do it anymore. But Stan, you can't tell me that he didn't create something and then decide to change things up. But the only difference between me and him, he didn't give up. And I just wish I would have been able to stay with it instead of just give up. But there's some comic book characters that I've actually of my own creation that I'm going to try to bring back. And then also he meant a lot to me in terms of just being a good person. Stan, as I said at the beginning, he was a man of God. He was a man of faith. I mean, he mentioned God in some of his quotes, and he was talking about until we that racism is a sin, and I wholeheartedly believe that it's a sin. And I mean, yeah, there was this one quote that I'm not going to repeat that I once said on the show before. I kind of disrespected a lot of women when I said that, but I'm sure that when he said it, it was out of humor. But I just have to remember, not everyone finds everything funny. But Stan will be missed, and we will see him again real soon. Alright, now the second thing, I found out that there's going to be a Loki TV series that's going to come to Netflix, and of course it's going to star Tom Hiddleston. Not really sure how I feel about that, because although Loki has really come into has really become very popular over since the first Thor movie came out in 2011. And Hiddleston has really been a big part of that. And I mean, this is my opinion, but I think that it could work, but I really don't see it lasting no more than one season, maybe two. But as soon as I know more about that, I'll let you know. Alright, that's it for Conley Speaking. Now then, it's finally time to get to the comics I bought this week.
Comic books I bought this week.
Alright, first up is Titans number 19. Justice League of America, Aquaman, Drown Earth. The Green Lantern number 1. Wait a minute. I only needed 3 to get to 9,000. That was 3. Just a minute. I did it! 9,000. But, according to what the back of the shirt said, I'm not done. Alright, next up, Justice League Dark number 3. X-Men Red number 10. As Guardians of the Galaxy number 3. Batman number 58. Champions number 26. Deadpool number 6. The Immortal Hulk number 8. Justice League number 11. Catwoman number 4. Exiles number 9. And finally, Infinity Wars number 5. Alright, that's 14, which brings the total number of comics that I've watched since December of 1997 to 9,011. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Here's a question again for our free tee for next week's episode of the show. What was Stan Lee's famous catchphrase? Everyone who answers correctly will be entered in a drawing for a free tee in next week's episode of the show. And congratulations to Christopher Newton from Camden, Arkansas, who won a free tee in this week's episode. Alright, I did it. 9,000 achieved. And then some. I say this every time I get to the 1,000 mark. I've read some good books. I read some bad books. But one thing I never regret is this hobby. And I hope to keep doing it for a very long time. In next week's episode, I'm going to give a more proper tribute to Stan Lee. And, it's really bittersweet for me to do this episode. It's really going to even be more bittersweet to do it next week. Stan, and there'll never be another Stan Lee. There just won't. However, we can live. A lot of writers and artists have lived up to his example, and they're going to continue to live according to his example. You're going to live by his example, and I think I'm going to start creating superheroes again. Dust off all those other superheroes that I created ever since I was in high school. Stop doubting myself. And stop doubting myself in terms of that, and hopefully you'll get to see some of my creations. Geeks Along the River is this weekend over at the River Market in Monroe. I won't be able to be there, but I'm encouraging anyone that's in the area or anyone that wants to go. It's the third annual. I went to the last two. We went to the first two, and they were amazing. And I can't imagine this one not being amazing as well. So, if you have the chance to attend, do so. And also, there's going to be a vigil the night before over at Villains Comics and Collectibles in Monroe. They're going to have a vigil for Stan Lee. And then this has all been organized by the co-owner of Villains Comics and Collectibles, Dustin Underwood. I won't be able to make it there either, but if you're in the area, please go and please go. I mean, pay tribute, your respects to such a wonderful man. Such a a name that everyone will always remember, including me. All right, well, I did it. All right, I'm Victor Noli on the Comic Hero. I'll see you next week for episode 238. So until then, be safe, be blessed, be a hero.